Well, hello there. This is Adam from the Poisoner's Almanac podcast. Just want to say thanks for all the 5-star reviews you guys have been leaving on the podcast. That is so helpful to push the podcast out to other listeners like you that enjoy this kind of content. Make sure you follow the podcast as well so that the episodes show right up on the front page of whatever platform you're listening on. Also, make sure you follow us on socials. We've got links where you can follow us in the show notes. Follow me on TikTok, follow Becca on TikTok. Most importantly, follow the podcast Instagram account, Poisoners_Almanac. Becca is posting deep cut granular info to that account all the time. Jump over there, drop that a follow, interact with those posts. You know what I'm saying. Do the things, the call to action, if you will. Let's get into the episode. Hey there, everybody. It's Adam, your co-host.
And Rebecca.
What's up, girl?
What?
How you been? How you living?
Honestly, I'm kind of anxious at the moment.
Oh, really?
I don't know why, though. It's like that feeling that you get within yourself where it feels like something's about to happen, but you don't know what.
It's probably the King of Hybern destroying the wall with the cauldron, if I had to be honest.
Yeah. You're still on that book. I feel you. But
yes.
yeah.
Boy, we read some fairy smut, don't we? I'm enjoying it so much. I have been welcomed in with open arms to the group DM on Instagram with you and a couple other friends. And the group only exists to share memes that have to do with Sarah J. Maas books.
Mm-hmm. This is true. Oh no,
and me.
Well, there's we've been into like fourth wing too, but you haven't gotten that far.
I know. I am the rookie.
Yeah, you're like the rookie fiction leader, really, because you usually read like biographies and stuff.
I do. Big in biographies, man.
Yeah, I've always been a fantasy or young adult kind of fiction fan, or mysteries. I do love some mysteries.
Mm-hmm. That's right. So, what is today's episode about, my dear?
We are going to talk about, well, first I want to talk about phosphorus, which is an element.
Correct. Everything's accurate so far.
Its symbol is P, so
Ayo.
That's easy to remember. Mm-hmm. Phosphorus starts with a P. Phosphorus. I'm also going to talk about dioxin, and if we have time, I'm going to talk about one more after that.
3 in 1 episode.
I know. But
my goodness,
there's a lot. Like I usually go by how many words I've written in my notes. Like that's how I base like the timing.
Now
sometimes.
Look at you.
But there's a lot written.
If I don't interrupt you, it doesn't take long.
Yeah, I will totally. Yeah, just go off on it. Okay, but so I want to talk about phosphorus first.
Okay.
Phosphorus first.
Ayo.
And there are 2 types, essentially, when it comes to phosphorus. You have white phosphorus and you have red phosphorus. Now, you may hear of yellow phosphorus because of the mixing of the 2, creating a yellow tint. There's also other mixtures that we aren't talking about here, such as black phosphorus. So, like, you can have a mixture and then it can look like a different phosphorus.
I didn't even know those existed.
Essentially, there's like 2 types, but they can intermingle, so to speak.
Okay.
So phosphorus is a non-metallic element found in phosphate rock and in trace amounts of urine. It has also been found in space as a possible result of supernovas. Kaboom. Big star explosions.
Wow.
Phosphates, which are anions made of phosphorus plus oxygen, are found as phosphoric acid or phosphoric salts. These are essential to our nutrition, actually, as they help our kidneys filter out waste, and they also play a role in the body producing and storing energy.
Mm-hmm.
But this is phosphates, right?
Okay.
So not strictly, just not like straight phosphorus.
Yeah, how it occurs in the wild.
Right.
Gotcha.
High phosphorus levels in the body can cause weakness by leaching the bones of calcium, basically. Just sucks it right on out there. This may also lead to high deposits of calcium in the blood vessels, lungs, eyes, and heart.
Wow.
So, no fun. Now, I'm going to talk, of course, about the history and etymology because those things fascinate me.
Please do.
So,
I like it too.
yes. So, the name phosphorus in ancient Greece was the same word for the planet Venus, which I guess makes sense because it's quite shiny. You ever hear like someone call something phosphorescent?
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Mhm.
phosphorus kind of glows.
Yes.
And not everything that's phosphorescent is actually made of phosphorus. It should technically be called chemilucence.
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 Chemolucence.
Not chemo.
Oh.
Chemilucence. It's like a chemical that is making it glow.
Oh, like CHEMI.
Yeah.
Chemilucence. Chemilucence.
Something like that. Yeah. So, but you often hear, it's phosphorescent. It's like, but it's not phosphorus.
So it can be used as an adjective, but it's not
Yeah.
necessarily. Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah. So the words used for the planet and thus the element mean light carrier or light bringer. Venus was also known as the morning star. Also the evening star in some places, because at that point it's like the brightest. It's the brightest thing in the sky.
Depending on where you are.
Yeah, at those points in time.
Sure.
So, phosphorus was discovered, or at least credited to be discovered, in 1669 by German alchemist Hennig Brand. And alchemist just sounds cool, but like a lot of alchemy was basically in search of like the philosopher's stone.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm talking about? This,
yeah.
I guess in America it's called the sorcerer's stone.
Well, thanks, marketing department.
I guess, but I know overseas it's called like the philosopher's stone.
Okay.
So, do you know what the philosopher's stone is supposed to do? You've seen the first Harry Potter. You should know this.
Certainly. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I've forgotten. I was going to see how long I could get away with that. Oh, totally. I know. I've seen the movie.
It has to do with like there being this sort of element that would cause you to live forever, to have immortality if you
I did know.
do something with it. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I'm just going to be honest next
the
time.
philosopher's stone.
But it's more fun to lie for as long as I can.
Okay, there you go. What you do, I guess. You're terrible at it though. So this dude thought he could create the philosopher's stone by evaporating urine and obtaining the salts. So he basically let urine sit out until it smelled horrible. He called it until it bred worms.
Okay.
So
why would anyone ever?
The thing is, if it's that doesn't happen unless you actively got.
Yeah, why would he use that description?
It doesn't. I don't know.
It's not a.
I don't want to know.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. Actually, plot twist. Don't care.
So he let this sit out, and then he would heat it down to a paste.
Oh, okay.
Lovely. He heated it more with sand and allowed the vapors to move up through a tube so that it would condense into some gold philosopher's stone thing.
A pea stone.
Mm.
He's basically making a kidney stone.
Yeah. Instead, he got a white, waxy substance that glowed in the dark.
Well, that's something.
And like,
you can keep the research grants coming if it glows in the dark, kid.
And look, like, I'm not even sure where he got the idea to do this, but it's because it's kind of like, was he just really bored one day and he just decided, you know what? What if the philosopher's stone is inside us? I don't know. Who knows? I don't know.
He ran out of ideas.
Yeah. So instead, he got this white, waxy substance that glowed in the dark. Phosphorus was also extracted from bones in the late 1700s, as well as bird and bat guano in the early to mid 1800s.
You said guano?
You know what guano is?
What is that?
You know what guano is? You've seen Ace Ventura. Guano.
Completely forgotten.
Bat poop.
Oh, it's feces. Okay.
Yes.
Why did I not? Okay.
Anyway, later in the 1800s, James Burgess Redman of Edinburgh created.
I want to go there.
I do.
Side note.
Yes, so do
oh
I.
my God.
Created the electric arc furnace, which could produce phosphorus from phosphate rock.
All right.
As it was the 13th element discovered, it was named the devil's element because 13 is like this unlucky number.
And I would say that's when they decided to get rid of the 13th floor on buildings, where there's probably no buildings that tall at that point.
You know, though, in Asian cultures, at least I don't know if it's in all Asian cultures, but in some of them, the number 4 like looks a lot like the word death in their language, and so like they don't have 4th floors, or they don't like to use it. It's like a superstition over there.
Let's just diagnose our patients with astrology.
I'm not superstitious.
Let's just give up.
I'm a little stitious.
A little stitious.
So who cares? Why are we talking about this? Well, it seems to have lived up to its nickname somewhat, having been used as not just for a fertilizer and in matches and fireworks. Happy 4th of July, I guess. But in poisons, explosives, and nerve gases, which we've talked a little bit about in an episode, some of the nerve gases.
Mm-hmm.
Now, during World War II, the British used it for incendiary bombs, and it has been used as such since. Phosphorus spontaneously combusts in air, and it burns at about 1,500 degrees Fahrenheit.
Get out of here.
And
just in room, like in regular room air, it will combust.
Mm-hmm. It sticks to cloth, like clothes, skin, and other human tissues, often causing 3rd-degree burns. Also, nerve gases are organic derivatives of phosphorus. So some of the stuff that we've talked about kind of connects that way.
Okay.
You ever seen like a war happening, and then like you see these glowing like lights come down after being set off, these like bombs that get set off, and there's like glowing lights. It looks like fireworks coming down.
Mm-hmm.
That's phosphorus.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
No fun. So we are focusing on white phosphorus as it is toxic, and it has been the most used as a poison and in explosives. In the 2008 to 2009 Gaza war, the Israeli military dropped incendiary shells filled with phosphorus over Palestinian-occupied civilian areas, such as a refugee camp and a school.
Yikes.
Not cool. 1,400 Palestinians were killed, including from 3rd-degree burn wounds, and likely, from the infection of said wounds. They have reportedly used it more recently as well, in their most recent conflict.
Nothing but yikes so far.
Yeah. It was reported that Russia used similar weapons in 2022 with Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
The U.S. used white phosphorus projectiles in the 2003 Iraq War.
Okay.
So it's been used by quite a few different people.
It's a common weapon.
Yeah. It's a terrible weapon. It's not cool.
It's meant to cause horrible injuries to people.
Also, napalm, which was used in Vietnam during the U.S. war with Vietnam, of course, is made with phosphorus.
I was just about to ask because it sounded like napalm.
It burns really hot.
Wow.
Now, ingested, it only takes about 15 milligrams to kill an adult human.
Wow.
It contains free radicals that are not readily metabolized, and sufferers will face symptoms as abdominal pain, diarrhea. Some have even said that their stools will smoke, like they're smoking. They're literally.
You're joking.
I'm not joking. As well as vomiting luminescent matter. That can't be good. That can't be good. No. Convulsions and coma. Death may follow within hours or a few days. Inhalation of phosphorus vapors or absorption through the skin can cause nausea, coughing, vomiting, extreme fatigue, numbness, low blood pressure, heart issues, convulsions, and death. If you're chronically breathing in these vapors, it will cause a rotting of the jaw known as phossy jaw.
Oh, wow.
And we're going to talk about that in just a second.
Okay.
There is no antidote for phosphorus poisoning, though if caught soon enough, stomach flushing and activated charcoal can flush the poison out. If phossy jaw is present, it requires the surgical removal of the jawbone. There's nothing else you can really do. With that, let's talk about the matchstick girls.
Okay.
As you can imagine, working conditions in the 1800s in general were not great.
Mm-mm.
One popular example of this can be found in Annie Besant's, who she's an English social reformer, in her 1888 article about the Bryant and May match factory in London's East End and the resulting strike.
Okay.
So matches at this time were made using white phosphorus because it like we said earlier, it combusts easily in air,
Mhm.
So those who worked at these match factories were constantly exposed to white phosphorus and were constantly breathing the vapors.
Mm.
They also suffered from conditions such as 14-hour workdays for little wages and were constantly fined for things like dropping a match or even talking or even sitting while at work. Many were beaten as well as fined and were told not to worry about what the machinery did to their fingers. Many of these girls were just 13 years old.
Mm-hmm. Child labor
Yes.
laws do not yet exist.
Right. And, they're just trying to, feed themselves and their families sometimes.
Keep from starving.
Keep from being on the streets, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So their wages depended on their age and was between 4 to 9 shillings a week, less if fined. For some context, rent would have been about 2 shillings, and the housing for these girls would not have been decent or safe
No.
either way.
No.
All while the owners were making 22% dividend. So
Profit margin?
mhm.
That is, they're cleaning up.
Yeah. So girls working in the match factory began experiencing toothaches, jaw pain, and swelling of the gums that worsened with time. Later, they would suffer from oral fistulas. If you don't know what that is, it's basically like a tunneling through of the tissue.
Oh my God.
Tooth loss and recurring abscesses. Their jaws would literally glow in the dark.
Are you
I'm
joking?
not joking.
I can't imagine.
Now, Phossy jaw was first diagnosed in a matchstick worker in 1839 by Dr. Frederick Wilhelm Lorenzer in Vienna. So this was going on not just in England, but in other places too. The next year, he would diagnose 22 more cases in Vienna. The phosphorus wasn't just causing jawbone decay, but also brain damage and eventual death with further exposure. Once Annie Besant's article came out exposing the situation.
Maybe she was antsy. Don't walk it back just yet.
I know, you're right. I mean, she could have been. Being a woman during this time, too.
We'll get a comment on the podcast on Spotify. Actually, she was known to be a little antsy.
Being a woman during this time, I'm antsy. So, same, Annie. But once her article came out exposing the situation in London, the owners of the Bryant and May matchstick factory tried to get the girls to sign this affidavit that everything was fine. And that was all lies. Like, oh, we get treated really well.
A legal document?
Mm-hmm. To sign, saying, oh, no, we're good.
Guys, just so you know, yes, we have labor laws. We have a litigious society, quote unquote. That does help protect against many abuses that used to occur freely back during this time period. But one thing that hasn't changed, companies.
No. So once her article came out exposing this situation, like I said, they were trying to get them to sign affidavits. The workers had the encouragement they needed, however, and went on strike.
Love it.
Bryant and May were eventually forced to compromise with their workers by providing higher wages and getting rid of fines. But the use of phosphorus in matches would continue until the early 1900s.
Of course. So even in their, gosh, that's just so gnarly. They did actually have, they achieved organized labor, but even so, the root issue of the safety of their workplace wouldn't change for quite a while. Wow.
So what we now know as Finland wasn't called that then, but it was the first to ban white phosphorus in matches in 1872.
Okay.
Followed by Denmark in 1874.
Naturally.
France in 1897. Great Britain banned its use in matches in 1910. There was actually a treaty signed by Denmark, Finland, France, Switzerland, Luxembourg, Italy, the Netherlands, and Germany in 1906 as a pledge to prohibit the manufacturing and sale of white phosphorus matches. So,
wow,
coming together.
That is quite a bit of cooperation.
Yeah, this would be the first international attempt to ban an industrial product, basically.
Oh, the first.
Yeah, that's what, yeah.
That is fascinating. Okay.
There were many cases of Phossy jaw in the U.S. as well, and President Howard Taft signed the White Phosphorus Match Act of 1912, which basically put this punitive tax on the use of white phosphorus in matchmaking, thereby making it financially impractical. So they didn't ban it, but they were like...
He basically did.
Yeah. I don't know why we can't just be
clever.
Just it's banned, whatever.
Well, you never know. It could be
A lot of
It could be that you
loopholes.
couldn't get the bill. You couldn't get the. Was this an executive order or was it legislation?
I'm guessing it's legislation.
Okay. Yeah, if it says he signed it into law,
yeah.
it implies it was a bill that was passed by both houses of Congress. It could be that if they tried to push it through as a total ban, they would not have signed. They would not have gotten enough votes.
Yeah,
for political reasons.
And I'm sure there's plenty of like companies like complaining like, hey,
oh, of course, this is our product.
And we're making lots of money off of it. We don't care about the workers.
Your product is making children's jaws glow in the dark. Please stop.
Not cool. So Canada banned it in 1914, India and Japan in 1919, and China banned it in 1925. As such, incidents of Phossy jaw have completely disappeared.
Wow.
Now, if you've watched Enola Holmes 2 on Netflix, the story is likely familiar because they do feature this part of history in that story. The second.
Did we watch the second one?
I've seen the second one. I don't know if you've seen it.
I haven't seen the second. We saw the first one together.
But there's a big chunk of it is about this. Is about this history. So it's done really well too, I think. All right, now we're going to talk about dioxin, which I'll be bringing up Vietnam again. So
okay.
Now dioxins are known as persistent organic pollutants, POP, POPs.
Ayo.
Meaning they can last in the environment for a long time.
Ooh.
There are hundreds of thousands and are related to the wider known PCBs, polychlorinated biphenyls.
Okay. Well, I don't think I've heard of those.
Like environmental pollutants.
Okay.
That, So some are a result of natural processes such as forest fires and volcano eruptions. I say natural, but, forest fires can be started by just a
gender reveal
gone wrong. I don't know. Yeah, because it has. It's totally, in California it happened. And I just don't understand why you need all that to reveal the gender of your baby. But whatever. You do you, I guess.
Sister in Christ. You don't need that.
No, I didn't have a gender reveal party. I didn't want to have I didn't want to have any parties. Yeah, because there's so many people. I don't like being around crowds.
Poor introverted soul.
Yeah, so I don't get it, but whatever. Just stop setting the forest on fire, please. The world's already burning metaphorically. We don't need it burn literally too.
Correct.
Okay. Others are human-made, either in industry or specifically as a poison or pesticide. They are highly toxic and cause cancer, reproductive and developmental problems, and damage to the immune and endocrine system. They accumulate through food chains, and 90% of human exposure is estimated by the EPA to be due to eating animal fats or meat, dairy, shellfish, and other seafood. So if they've been exposed to it, it kind of bioaccumulates.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
While I mentioned there were hundreds of thousands of these bad boys, we are going to be talking about one kind specifically today. Its scientific name is 2378. Who do we appreciate? Sorry. 2378 tetrachloroparadioxin. That's a mouthful.
Yes.
2378 TCDD. It is commonly just known as dioxin. As that's what we're just gonna.
An abbreviation. Oh wow.
We're just gonna talk about it. We're just gonna say dioxin. We're talking about the specific one. But
okay.
As it has been synthesized to be used as a poison specifically.
Goose poison.
The poison. Now, dioxin toxicity is difficult to measure as it depends on the organism's metabolism. Half-life in humans is at least 5 years. Some of the toxin combines with the DNA in a cell's nucleus and prevents protein synthesis over time.
Oh, that is bad news.
Yeah, not good. This can lead to problems with immunity and also to cancer promotion. You're basically, it's basically messing with the
how
the
your
DNA
cells code the DNA.
Yeah.
Jeez, man.
Now, symptoms of poisoning start with irritation of the skin and mucous membranes following direct exposure. Further symptoms are often delayed and can take weeks to appear. These include something called chloracne, which is a condition that disfigures the face with cysts, pockmarking, and discoloration. Excessive hair growth, sensory impairments, muscle weakness, and at high doses, wasting away and death. There is no antidote for dioxin. Treatment involves stomach flushing and administering activated charcoal. So basically just trying to get it out of your
Your
system.
charcoal's trying to come in clutch.
Well, like, 'cause it can absorb it and try to get it out.
Right.
But that's, you kind of have to catch it while it's still, I guess, in the digestive tract for it to do that.
Wow.
If dioxin sounds familiar, it could be for a few reasons. Dioxin made up a good bit of a certain herbicide and defoliant known as Agent Orange.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where, yeah. If you are familiar with the Vietnam War, you'll know that this was dropped by the U.S. over quite a bit of Vietnam. In fact, over 20 million gallons of the stuff was dropped over forests and areas that were easy to hide in.
Do you know who's not familiar with the Vietnam War?
Who?
Lyndon Baines Johnson.
Oh my God.
May he rest in torment. Thank you, sir.
Now, it is now estimated by the Vietnam Red Cross that over 3 million people suffered from deadly diseases thanks to this poisoning of the environment they were living in.
Mm-hmm.
Such illnesses as sarcomas, non-Hodgkin's and Hodgkin's lymphoma, and other chronic health issues.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've personally met with veterans involved as well who were affected by Agent Orange when I worked at the VA.
Yep.
I've seen them with all kinds of muscular dystrophies,
Mm-hmm.
All kinds of different kind of cancers and such.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
It is shocking to me. And it's shocking to me that I know there's a chemical engineer somewhere on active duty in the United States military before the Vietnam War started, before they make the call to use Agent Orange. I just cannot believe that they did not raise a hand and say, I really don't think that if all the foliage within, a square mile is dead within 24 hours, that any other human being should be near this stuff.
I don't think at this time they cared. They just cared about winning.
Right.
So.
But then what's even more egregious is they repeated similar mistakes with the burn pits in the Middle Eastern locations of warfare, where they were just, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what they constantly shock me with their inability to care about what happens to active duty personnel.
Well, they also this was when the draft was happening too, right? So
for
people
sure.
who had people were just being sent over there.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine it for those living where it was dumped and having long-term exposure.
Mm-hmm.
Significant birth defects are still common among Vietnamese children because of Agent Orange. Like I said, these are long-lasting chemicals.
50 years later.
Yeah. The war ended in 1975.
Unbelievable.
Now, the Vietnam Red Cross reported that at least 150,000 children that were born with serious birth defects from the exposure were born with serious birth defects.
And nothing was accomplished by the war. That's the saddest. It's not like D-Day or World War II, where it was like there was a clear and present evil that the world united to get rid of. That's not what Vietnam was. It's so sad.
Yeah. And that report about the children was in 2022, so there could be more by now.
Right.
You may wonder whether the U.S. knew if this stuff was toxic, but it was definitely...
We knew. If you're wondering out there, folks, we knew.
It was definitely recognized as dangerous already. Industrial workers in Germany in the late 19th century developed problems such as skin lesions after exposure to it in the workplace. So, I mean, we knew that it was... people knew that it was not great to be around. Now, I don't know if they knew the extent of how far it would go, but, The VA has since recognized several conditions that are presumed to be from Agent Orange exposure, including bladder cancer, type 2 diabetes, Hodgkin's disease, hypothyroidism, ischemic heart disease, Parkinson's, prostate cancer, respiratory cancers, and soft tissue sarcomas. Researchers have also found that veterans exposed to Agent Orange are 2.5 times more likely to be diagnosed with dementia.
It's awful.
I actually read on a Veterans Affairs website that there are about 50 diseases connected to Agent Orange and about 20 known kinds of birth defects seen in children of veterans. It also reported that about 300,000 veterans have died from Agent Orange exposure, which is a lot more than the 58,000 who died in combat during the war.
Yes.
These are just numbers for the U.S.
That's
also.
just staggering. Yeah.
These are
of
just,
course.
I don't have all the numbers for
It's just staggering, bro.
Now, veterans who have been exposed qualify for financial assistance and disability, but honestly, it doesn't seem like much when your health has been pretty much taken from you. Like when I saw the numbers, I was like, that's it? That's all they get? Okay. There have been some accidental poisonings since the war in Vietnam. with this stuff, such as dioxins, such as a major industrial accident in Cerveso, Italy in 1976, which spilled dioxin into residential areas, killing animals and causing acute symptoms in residents living nearby,
Lord.
including 19 children who were hospitalized with skin lesions. Hundreds were treated for skin irritation, and about 640 people were affected with chloracne because of exposure.
Awful.
The company actually refused to admit the accident had occurred for like a week, and evacuations were not done for another week after that.
What was that? A company lied? That's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's giving Chernobyl, to be honest, because they didn't want to mention that either. Also, and
it's like there's a river of chocolatey goodness running down the street near Hershey, Pennsylvania, and the Hershey plant is like, I don't know where that came from.
Well, I know, like with Chernobyl, like they didn't know until where was it that they got alarms? It might have been like Sweden or Switzerland, somewhere else in Europe.
You told me that.
Yeah,
I remember this.
And they were like, "Hey, what's this?
Did you guys have a thing?"
And then they were like, "Oh, golly." And then like so that a lot of people were evacuated later there too, and so we could do a whole episode on Chernobyl.
I'd love to.
Reactors and such.
Yeah, everything's fine. As soon as the reactor exploded, it really helped a lot of the problems.
Oh dear. So not cool. Also, 1997, when 5 women were poisoned while working in a textile factory in Germany. They had been exposed to so much dioxin, it was surprising that they lived, though they did suffer chronic effects such as chloracne.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll, when I post pictures on the Instagram for this episode, you'll see what chloracne looks like and all that, because I do have some pictures of somebody we're about to talk about now.
Okay.
There is one famous case of an intentional poisoning using dioxin that we should discuss, and it involves Ukrainian politics. So for some history/background, Ukraine gained their independence in 1991 after having been under the Soviet Union since like 1922. Their history is very long and interesting, so you can go check it out if you're into that sort of thing. Later that year, Leonid Kravchuk became, I'm probably saying his name wrong. Don't poison me. Leonid Kravchuk, I'm just kidding, became the first democratically elected president of the nation. So that's pretty cool. In July of 1994, Leonid Kuchma, a lot of Leonids, replaced him as a president. And he served 2 terms. So Kuchma served 2 terms. During his second term, Viktor Yushchenko was appointed as prime minister, and where Kuchma was failing to improve the economy and was losing popularity, Yushchenko was an advocate of economic reform and had made some progress in only like 18 months. Now, Kuchma began to see Yushchenko as a threat to his presidency, I guess, and he fired him from his job as prime minister in 2001.
Okay.
And Yushchenko subsequently formed a democratic coalition party called Our Ukraine in support of democratic reform. So like they're pro-European and they encourage dialogue among voters, like as one should.
Okay.
And they took the biggest share of the vote in the parliamentary elections in 2002.
All right.
So this is all very recent history, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I hope I'm saying their last names right. I didn't want to say their first names because like there's so many like of the same first name in some of these stories. Okay. So, but if I am, feel free to correct me.
Okay.
Now, at this point, Kuchma was seen as responsible for the country's failing economy, and he had been accused of intimidating political opponents. The next presidential election year was in 2004 between Yushchenko and Viktor Yanukovych.
Nailed it.
I hope so. Because his name's Victor too. There's 2 Victors. There's 2 Leonids and there's 2 Victors.
Okay.
Because it's Victor. Yeah, it's 2 Victors. And September 5th of that year, Yushchenko had dinner with the chairman and deputy chairman of the Ukrainian Security Service to discuss their roles in the upcoming election campaign. So the next day, he started experiencing stomach pains and was diagnosed locally with food poisoning. He was still experiencing bad symptoms by September 10th. So this is like 4 or 5 days later. So he was taken to a private clinic in Vienna, well known for its international reputation in medicine and technology. By then, his liver, pancreas, and intestines were swollen, and his entire digestive tract was ulcerated.
Wow.
He was given other diagnoses, such as pancreatitis, but it wasn't until another disfiguring symptom showed up that the truth was found out. Yushchenko was already suspicious that someone had tried to kill him, but he continued with his campaign, receiving pain meds via epidural at this point for severe pain.
Wow. What a gangster.
It was about 2 weeks after the dinner that he started to experience facial swelling. And 3 weeks later, his face was swollen and paralyzed on the left side when lesions began to appear, turning into these inflamed cysts.
Mm-hmm.
These lesions then formed on his body, like all over.
Mm-hmm.
It would later be discovered that these lesions are actually the body's way of protecting itself by isolating the poison away from vital organs. Like it's basically pushing into the skin. These lesions also gave the necessary clue to find out what the true diagnosis was, and a toxicologist was able to confirm the poisoning. He would not have known he had been poisoned, as dioxin is colorless and tasteless, and it was determined that the men he had met at dinner that fateful night had been the poisoners.
Wow.
It was extremely likely that the men were working for the Russian government and were trying to eliminate him as a candidate in favor of the pro-Russian Yanukovych,
Mm-hmm.
who also had the backing of then President Kuchma.
Mm-hmm. Well.
Now, the election ended in a close runoff, and Yanukovych was declared president until mass protests encouraged the Supreme Court to call another runoff in which Yushchenko won. So everybody was like, wait a minute.
That's crazy, dude.
So yes, Yushchenko won. He became president in 2005.
Their biggest mistake was letting him live, because it will galvanize his political support. Because people will know as soon as it becomes public, he was poisoned.
Well, they were trying to kill him.
Well, right. But the fact that they failed is just shocking.
They were trying to kill him. He
had one job.
Well, thankfully they failed.
Yeah, exactly.
All requests to extradite the men involved in the poisoning have been refused, and little has been done in terms of investigation of the matter.
No way!
When interviewed by a journalist, Yushchenko said, "My poisoning took place because I had started taking steps toward the European Union. We have a neighbor who does not want this to happen." There you go.
I'm a man.
There's that.
Telling the truth.
Okay. Now, yeah, and he still had like chronic issues later, like his face was still pretty messed up later.
It's so awful.
And like he had really excellent doctors, and they think that they've really come a long way in helping to treat him. So
sure. And I will say, like, for all of its faults, like, you can't do that stuff in America. It's a completely different situation. There's America. We may joke about the issues that America has and companies and capitalism, blah blah blah. But look here.
I don't know, Boeing.
We don't. Well, you know what I'm saying.
And I'm not saying that that's a thing. I'm just.
There's at least a free press and a litigious, society where things can be done legally. There's at least a chance that it just go away quietly, like you just mentioned. Nothing's ever been investigated.
Right. And like, I'm not saying the whole Boeing thing is real. I don't know, but it's a little weird. It's a little weird.
Yeah. I'm not into conspiracy theories, and immediately that phrase is always followed by the cuckooest stuff you've ever heard. Anyways,
but I don't know. The Boeing thing's weird though.
It's kind of it's
even the guy was like, "I know what happens." Like, who says that? Who says that?
Okay. My guy, I can't believe.
There's really nothing.
He's afraid for his life. That's what's going on.
There's really nothing that would shock me. Aliens could land tonight, and I'd be like, well.
And 50% of the country would be like, that tracks.
Yeah, I guess so. Cool, whatever. Just don't knock on my door.
Aliens would land, and we'd be like, did you guys see that debate?
They would come just to talk about it. They love TikTok. I'm just kidding. I don't know. Man. Anyway, so we do have time. I'm going to discuss polonium.
Please.
Polonium. Now,
polonium monk.
No. So this is another element we're going to discuss, kind of like phosphorus. I mean, it's not like phosphorus, but like phosphorus, it is an element.
Right.
I mean, it is radioactive. Anyway. I was going back and forth on whether to cover this now or later because I also want to cover radium later, which has some connections to polonium. But whatever, radium itself is a big topic with a very interesting toxic history.
I never knew. My mouth fell open the more that Becca told me about it.
Yeah, so we will definitely discuss radium later. So let's go for it with polonium now.
Yes.
This will get you ready for the radium talk later. Polonium, element number 84, was discovered by Polish-French Marie Curie and her husband Pierre. Polish-French scientist, Marie Curie and her husband Pierre in 1898. It is actually named for her homeland, Poland, when it was still under...
Get out of here.
Well, at that point, it was still under Russian, German, and Austro-Hungarian control or limitations.
Wow.
It was not yet independent, so...
Okay.
She named the element after Poland in the hopes of publicizing its lack of independence. Like, she hoped it would gain fame enough to...
What a gangster.
Yeah.
I never knew that part. Okay.
It was discovered while investigating the radioactivity of pitchblende, or uraninite ore, and isolating uranium and thorium from it. This gets a little bit chemically, so I'm just going to do the necessary stuff. They found that the ore was even more radioactive after the removal of uranium and thorium, and thus polonium was discovered, and then later radium.
Wow. Okay.
And so a lot of this has to do with decay. Things become other things with decay. Okay.
Yes.
Decay, K.
Okay.
All right. So basically, uranium-238 decays to radon-222, which decays to polonium. Okay.
Yep.
You following me?
Yeah.
Don't ask me to go any deeper than that.
Okay. Would you mind going deeper than that?
No.
Okay.
All of these are incredibly radioactive, if you did not know, and the reason why Marie Curie was buried in a lead coffin.
So intense, dude.
So more on that in a later episode.
Wow.
It is found in trace amounts in the Earth's crust. It's not even enough to harm anyone when it's found there. Also, polonium has been useful in areas such as space probe heaters, anti-static devices, sources of neutron and alpha particles, and poison. So its uses are pretty limited. Yeah. Polonium was also used during the Manhattan Project to develop an atomic weapon. It was used in the initiators for atomic bombs by reacting with beryllium, another element.
Beryllium sphere, maybe?
No, okay. Now, see, now
activate the omega-13.
now I really gotta watch that. We were just talking about aliens too.
So
and like, I'm not like a big alien geek or anything. I'm just saying if they landed, it would not surprise me.
Is there air here?
But that movie's amazing. That movie's amazing. Anyway,
can you construct some sort of rudimentary lathe?
Get off the line, guy.
Sam Rockwell. Okay.
Brilliant movie.
Yes.
Now, we are specifically going to be discussing isotope polonium-210. There are others, and all of them are dangerous.
Okay, I thought you were about to say 211, and I was about to be like, you uncultured swine.
Well done. Now, this was also, I said it was used in the making of atomic bombs. It was also once tested on volunteer patients with incurable illnesses. Because radioactive substances were once thought to be these miraculous cures. And you'll hear that
Folks,
again when we talk about radium.
I want to let y'all into a little secret. In any sort of clinical research that happens, there's a thing called an institutional review board, or an IRB. They are the group of people who say yes or no to a study happening. When this happened, there was no IRB.
Well, it says they were volunteers, so I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how
maybe there was, but they were just dumb.
I don't know how they did that, or if they were just like, yeah, sure. I don't know. I don't know the details.
Okay.
But just as a, if you need a mnemonic, I guess, well, no, not a mnemonic. Maybe it's a mnemonic. If it glows, it blows. Don't do that. If it's glowing, don't put it in your mouth. Wipe it on your face.
If it's glowing, it's going to be blowing.
Don't do that. Okay? So
did you make that up yourself?
I did.
Man, give me that on a coffee cup. Let's go.
I love rhyming. It helps me to remember things.
Okay. So, a mnemonic device.
Yeah. Anyway, polonium-210 emits alpha particles that damage genetic materials in cells within the body. Fun. Exposure occurs via inhalation, ingestion, or contact with damaged skin or open wounds. Now, it will not go through unbroken skin. and it can be removed with careful washing. But you don't want to contaminate things either. Now, internal exposure results in damage to organs, resulting in serious medical issues and death. Even a speck the size of a period can contain 3,000 times the lethal dose for humans.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah. It is 250,000 times more toxic than cyanide, with a lethal dose of 1 microgram. 1 gram is
that's 1/1000th of a gram.
1 gram is theorized to be enough to kill 50 million people and sicken another 50 million.
Okay.
If the exposure is small but present over time, it can cause cancers.
Mm-hmm.
It has been known to accumulate in seafood and other food sources if contaminated.
Oh yeah, you could have left that part out, but
Sorry, it's okay. It's rarely in that kind of.
Sure.
Yeah. Usually, if you're going to be poisoned with this stuff, it's going to be an intentional type
there's
poison.
this isn't a hobbyist poison.
Right. So it attaches pretty readily to tobacco leaves, however, and elevated levels of polonium have been recognized in tobacco since 1964.
Wow.
In fact, heavy smokers may be exposed to as much radiation as individuals in Poland were from the Chernobyl fallout traveling from Ukraine.
Are you joking?
I am not joking.
So in addition to smoking already being carcinogenic, there's also radiation exposure.
Yeah. Oh, there's all kinds of chemicals.
No idea.
No. Yeah, there's a lot of chemicals in cigarettes. And you know what? You do. I'm not coming after you. I'm not.
Yeah. We're talking about the science here.
I'm just letting you know it's, just another reason why it's not good for you. But
okay.
So, as I briefly mentioned, if ingested, polonium attacks the cells, destroying them from the inside out at the nucleus, basically. It just goes pop.
Right.
Pop goes the cells. So this causes horrible damage to the organs. It also gets into the bone marrow and causes the lymphatic system to shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And death follows, naturally.
Good. Yeah.
It has been called the world's perfect poison because it is odorless, colorless, and difficult to trace within the body. Thankfully, it is relatively rare and difficult to extract. Only around 100 milligrams is manufactured in all the world's nuclear reactors every year.
Wow.
So, symptoms of polonium-210 poisoning are typical of radiation poisoning. So you have your nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, hair loss, and severe headaches, followed by liver and kidney failure. Death can take days to weeks to occur.
It's going to ruin the tour.
Oh, it'll definitely ruin the tour.
What tour?
The world tour. The only treatment available involves the flushing out of the stomach if ingested. However, as soon as a lethal amount enters the bloodstream, it is too late and it cannot be stopped. Basically, an all-out war on your cells, and your cells will lose.
100%.
So, let's talk about Alexander Litvinenko. Okay, I hope I'm saying his name right. I did my best. So, Alexander was born in the Soviet Union in 1962. He served in the Russian army before being transferred to the KGB in 1988, which is this is the Russian security services, and later called the FSB. So KGB to FSB.
They rebranded.
Yeah.
They hired a PR firm. Like, how can we improve our public image, which has obviously been sullied by the James Bond films?
So he worked in the anti-terrorist movement for a bit, then was moved to investigate organized crime in Russia. He became
That's a mistake, buddy.
He became highly critical of the Kremlin's policies.
Oh dear.
And was not a fan of Vladimir Putin.
Let me guess. TLDR. He's dead.
Anyway. And Putin was the head of the FSB at this time.
Yes, he was.
At the time that he worked there. Now, in 1998, he accused the FSB at a press conference of ordering him to murder Boris Berezovsky, a businessman who was vocally against Putin and had close ties to higher-ups himself. Now, this got him fired and led to his arrest and imprisonment for a year somehow. Like, I guess that's, if you...
How can you tell truth about this man?
Yeah, going to be in prison. Now, once he was released, after this, he left for Britain with his family, obviously get away, and worked in London as a writer, journalist, and consultant at times. The guy he was ordered to kill, Boris, was also in exile at this point, and he helped him with financial support. I'm imagining he saved the guy's life by being like, hey, he wants me to kill this guy.
Interesting.
So he didn't actually kill him. He actually told everybody that they wanted him to kill. He also may have given M16 information and secrets on the Kremlin's ties to organized crime, as well as Russian organized crime happening in Spain.
Okay.
Now, Litvinenko had actually offered to testify before a Spanish prosecutor about this organized crime at one point.
Mm-hmm.
So Alexander Litvinenko met with two colleagues, Andrei Lugovoy, who he had known back in Russia, and Dmitry Kovtun, to discuss business concerning firms wanting to invest in Russia. They had met with him once earlier. Before. They met with him before. One of these times was earlier in 2005 to discuss the venture, and it is noted that Litvinenko did not drink the tea that he was given then. That same evening, they went to a sushi restaurant where a man named Mario Scaramella met with Litvinenko. This guy was an Italian security consultant, apparently looking for info concerning Russia's possible influence on recent Italian elections. So they had their hands in all
this
these
is international espionage,
basically. Anyway, back to November of 2006. Litvinenko met with Lugovoy and Kovtun at the Pine Bar off the foyer of the Millennium Hotel in Mayfair.
This is in the UK?
Yes.
Okay.
Don't ask me to map it out. Never been there.
All right.
Not great with geography. I'm doing my best.
You are not.
I know where I am right now, and that's good enough for me. There they had drinks, but Litvinenko said he was short on funds and wanted nothing. The two men urged him to have some green tea they had ordered or had been brought. He took 2 to 4 sips of the tea. The next few days, he had symptoms of vomiting and diarrhea, but believed he just had food poisoning.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I feel like if it were me, I would be paranoid all the time if I had been in all of these situations.
Right. It takes a certain kind.
Yeah, I would be, yeah. When it persisted, he was admitted to the hospital and then was moved to a bigger hospital once the poisoning had become indicative of his symptoms. So it took some time to discover what the poison could be. His symptoms resembled thallium poisoning, as his hair had fallen out and his white cell count had plummeted. Mm-hmm. He was not having the numbness in the extremities, however, that usually goes along with thallium poisoning. Mm-hmm. He was kept under guard and was interviewed by police for a total of 9 hours. I don't know if that's consecutive. I doubt that's consecutively. I'm sure it's over time.
Yeah.
During which he told them who could have poisoned him, where, and when. The KGB denied any involvement, but the poisoners were not exactly bright with how they handled their crime either. The story was huge in the media at the time, and Litvinenko asked to be photographed so that people could see what had been done to him, openly blaming Vladimir Putin.
Wow.
For ordering his poisoning.
Mm-hmm.
Where he was once healthy, he was now weak, thin, bald, jaundiced, and hooked up to multiple machines. Mm-hmm. His heart rate had become permanently irregular. His bone marrow was under attack, and his organs were failing.
Yeah.
He was described by his doctors as looking like a late-stage cancer patient very quickly.
Yeah, that's a good description.
Now, he died November 23rd, and they would finally discover that the poison was polonium-210 from a urine sample.
Wow.
Since the substance is only found in nuclear reactors, this was definitely out of place.
That's right.
This allowed investigators to trace the substance. Like I said earlier, these poisoners may have been effective, but they were not very smart. They were able to determine that Litvinenko had been clean of radioactivity before meeting the two men, but afterward he seemed to carry a trace of it everywhere. They also found traces of polonium in the two men's hotel rooms, the ones that, had dined with him, the bathroom of the hotel bar they had met in, and in places they had been before meeting Litvinenko, such as airplane seats and on credit cards that they used. Mm-hmm. They even contaminated themselves and had to be treated for radiation poisoning upon their return to Russia.
Okay. Yeah.
Also, the polonium used was traceable back to a nuclear reactor in Sarov in Russia. only a higher-ranking official would have had authority to get polonium from the reactor to use
Mhm.
this. So
That's what happened. Wow.
yeah. So I mean, yeah. While they have this evidence, the Kremlin denied everything, and the two men were already back in their home country getting treatment for radiation poisoning.
It is all lies. They're food poisoning.
An official inquiry into the matter almost a decade later would report that Litvinenko was likely poisoned on orders approved by the FSB and Vladimir Putin.
Yes.
There had been no trial or conviction for his murder. So that sucks because they can't really do anything. Anyway. Also, separate but similar with this, do you remember Yasser Arafat?
Yes.
Yes. He was a Palestinian leader at one time.
Yes. Was it the PLO? Is that what it was called? The Palestinian Liberation Organization?
I honestly am not sure.
Okay.
But he died in 2004 from a sudden and mysterious illness, and many actually believe it was polonium.
I did not know this.
Yes.
Okay.
There was an investigation, and it actually did find traces of polonium on his clothing, but it cannot conclusively say it's what killed him.
What?
But at the same time, like, why is it there? Like, where did he get this on him? Yeah. So that's polonium. Like I said, we're going to talk about radium later, too. And it's a doozy. But
absolutely.
Yeah, that was, and I hope I got most of these names right. Litvinenko.
I mean, you're just doing your best over here.
Yeah. That was actually fun to say it that way. Litvinenko. How would you say this?
Litvinenko. Yeah. That's it. That's what I would do.
Making sure. I'm doing my best here. So yeah, those are my cases for today. Those are the poisons that I wanted to talk about. And I feel like maybe we should cover radium soon because I don't want everybody to forget about polonium before we get to radium.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe,
I mean, well, that would be tragic.
Maybe we'll cover that one next time. We shall see.
Certainly. That'll do it for today's episode, everybody. Thanks for listening. Make sure you give us a follow here on the podcast on whatever platform you're listening on, and links in the show notes to follow us on socials, including the podcast Instagram account that Becca runs herself. And we will see y'all in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.